All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Black and Gold. This is HiBruiNation. Tonight, we got something brewing in HiBruiNation as I'm joined by the host of the Something Bruin podcast. I'm Mr. Mike Sullivan. Mike, welcome to the pod, and how are we doing?
What's up, man? I'm good. I'm good. It's been a slow summer so far, but plenty of stuff to talk about. A lot of stuff happening with the Bruins. Obviously Swayman. We'll get into that. A bunch of other stuff, but I'm happy I'm here. I'm happy you extended the invite, and I can't wait to have a good show.
Yeah, dude, I mean, we're certainly happy to have you, and, I couldn't appreciate you enough for coming on and taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on here as well. You're right. We have a couple topics tonight. One being the potential contract of Jeremy Swayman. The others being Jake DeBrusk's recent comments based on his interview. I can't remember if he had that. I think he had that in Vancouver.
Yeah.
A discussion on what we think the Bruins lineup will be. I know that on your pod you've addressed it, and on mine we've kind of addressed it too. But I've seen on Twitter that we kind of differ a little bit. So let's get the fisticuffs going, and we'll fight it over. And what we would basically give for a free agency grade this summer, despite all of our acquisitions coming pretty much on day one. Why don't we start with this Jeremy Swayman contract? He's still not signed. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing that I always think about, or have started to think about since that trade went through, the raw reaction when that trade first happened. Obviously, you get the 25th overall pick back to Boston. That was originally part of the Bertuzzi trade, so you get that back. You get Mark Kostelic, which, I mean, outside of hardcore hockey fans, not too many people would have even known who that was. I, like myself, I had to research a little bit into him. Like, who is this guy? Like, what's he good at? Like, bottom six type of guy. Who is he? But I liked it. I like that pickup as well. Honestly, it's the thing that I always go back to now at the point that we're at. It's odd that they make that deal, trading Allmark and obviously getting Korpisalo back as well, which was a head scratcher at the time. But it makes me wonder why you traded Allmark so quickly when it seems like you didn't already have a handshake agreement with Swayman ready to sign, ready to get done, and then have that, off of your conscience for the rest of the offseason. That was the odd thing to me.
Do you feel like, I mean, with the addition of Korpisalo, I mean, you're right. I agree with you. At first glance, it looked atrocious. It was 4 years. It's $3 million. But I'm looking at it, when I look back at it and I revisit it, I see it's $3 million. And I think about, I'm like, that's backup goaltender money nowadays. And that's exactly what Korpisalo is going to be. You have Brandon Bussey up and coming. He has that 1-year deal on the Prove It contract. Do you think that they were so quick to move Allmark because they knew they needed to get the defensive and offensive help in the form of Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov and Max Jones and Mark Costello? Do you think that was the primary reason that trade was made?
I think so, because if you look at the team as a whole and what it's been since Bergeron and Krejci left, you need a center. Like, that is number one priority. You need that number one center. And it was pretty evident over the past couple playoff runs that you need that maybe not number one defenseman necessarily, but you need that defenseman on the back end who can play gritty, who can throw his body around, throw his weight around, protect Swayman, protect the crease. Like, that DNA has been missing on Boston's blue line for a very long time. You could even say since Chara left. Kevin Miller, sure, he played that role, but to what extent? Like, Zadorov is a guy that is going to come in and change the DNA of the blue line. And I think it's something that, the team needed. So that was definitely a priority. Same thing with Lindholm. I mean, you look at his hockey DB and you watch him over the years and his point production goes up, it goes down. But one thing that he's been consistently good at is his two-way game. And he's great defensively. He can put up points when he's with the right players. And with the Bruins power play as well, Bergeron took that bumper spot. That was his spot on the power play. Since he's been gone, that spot has been vacant and the power play has struggled because of it. Now you got Elias Lindholm coming in, and he's going to play that role. He's going to be first line center. He's going to be getting those big time minutes, being expected to produce offensively with guys like Pastrnak, guys like Zaka. And I think the Bruins believe in him and believe that he can get back up to that maybe like 70 to 85 point realm. And so, yeah, I think that, to go back to your question, I think that was one of the main reasons why they pulled the deal so early, because they needed that money freed up to sign these guys.
Yeah, and I think adding, you mentioned a wonderful point about changing the DNA of the defense, adding more additional two-way forwards, and I mean also adding the size, because
Yep.
that to me screams like you're making moves and you're not sacrificing necessarily speed, because it's not to say that Jones doesn't have speed or Lindholm can't skate quickly or anything like that, but that transition game is going to be so important, especially when you're going to protect your goaltender. And I think that's been something that great teams, not just good teams, but great teams, they recognize, in that it all starts from the net outward, and you can't build from the forward core back. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because then you feel like something's lacking. That being said, the Bruins as of today, according to Puckpedia, with their full roster, assuming either Lysell or Merkulov, it doesn't matter which one, they're just saying either one of them are in the lineup. The Bruins have $9.35 million in cap space.
Yep.
If that's the case, and you have a full roster, it begs the question for me, what is the figure that one Swayman is looking for? And the fact that, both of the parties did not send each other to arbitration
Right.
means that there's a path forward. So I don't know if it's the money holding it up, or is it incentives? Is it the implementation of a full no move clause, a partial no trade clause? I don't understand. And this is kind of like what perplexes me. But I think if we also come back, I saw a post a while ago that it even took Pastrnak a while to get that contract done.
Yep. Yep.
So I'm confident it gets done, but I'm curious of like what you think that some of the holdups might be. Do you think it's money? Do you think it's just term? Do you think it's just maybe the incentives, or what comes a part of that contract?
Honestly, I think because they have the money to spend. Um, I think it's more term. And if you look back at some Don Sweeney and Cam Neely's contract negotiations, they seem to really like bridge deals. And I think the term is where they're kind of locked, against each other. If it was me, I would probably, and actually, if I was Swayman, he's probably looking around a number around $8 million per year.
Mhm.
And he probably most likely wants to be locked up. Maybe not, because obviously the cap space in the NHL is going up every year. It's projected to continue to go up. So
Ideally, right?
ideally,
Ideally,
yeah, it's
yep.
a
Ideally,
very Bettman's
we
plan.
were promised that last year in 2023, and that
Yeah.
did not happen. So we'll see what Get Bettman has to say. But yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I just think it's a place where I think it's more term. I think it's more term. Because they have the money to work with. They can find a number pretty, amicably, but the term is most likely where it's locked up at.
Yeah, I like the point you made about bridge deals.
Yeah.
But in this case, when he's 25, 26, this is your
Right.
last opportunity to actually get him as an RFA before he can just be like, you know what, thanks, I'm
Yeah.
good. So if I'm Cam Neely and Don Sweeney, this guy is likely going to be better. I think he is going to be better than Tuukka Rask.
Yeah. I agree
That
with
I
you.
he played, and you can say Tuukka probably had a much better defense and better Bruins teams, in my opinion, in front of him.
Yep.
Now, maybe coach had some play into that, or, systems. Some people perform better in certain scenarios, right? But when I look at this Bruins team and this Bruins defense, I think, again, we're going to be comparable to 2022, 2023, where we might have either the deepest or top three deepest defenses in the NHL.
Yep. Yep.
In terms of size, penalty killing, maybe not the power play. I'll say that, unless McAvoy, Carlo, and Lindholm can kind of get that wheel going again. But if I'm Swayman, I know he would be upset about Allmark. I do think there is something to play there that he was upset, but I feel like they knew it was coming. I just didn't think he must not have thought it was a reality until it became one.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And, I mean, the fact I'm excited Allmark being in the division. You're gonna get Swayman versus
Yep.
Allmark a couple times a year. That's gonna be a must-watch TV.
I have to say, I'm hoping they do a goalie hug at some point. I don't care
That'll be
what it is.
funny.
I could you can hate the other team, you can hate whatever you want, but at the end of the day, those guys are still hockey players. They're
Yeah.
still friends. Some form of recognition. If I'm at the Garden for Ottawa, Boston, I don't care who wins. I want to see somebody hug somebody.
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah,
see. I want to
sunrise.
see it because yeah, exactly. That's a show of respect. It's more than just a game, right? And
Yeah.
that's why I love hockey. In terms of Swayman's figure, for me, I think you got to get him for 8 years. The bare minimum I'm accepting is 7.
Yeah.
In terms
Yeah.
of money, you're right. He might be looking for 8. I actually have him between 8 and 8.75.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I have him. I can't see him making 9 million right now. I'd be hard pressed for a guy that has yet to kind of play the full start load of a goaltender to give him $9 million, but I'm willing to give him between that value. But nothing. I'm a little hesitant to give him more.
Yeah, that's the thing too. And that's kind of a little bit of a knock. Not a knock. I don't want to say a knock because that seems disrespectful. But when you're looking at a potential contract for Swayman and you're comparing him to other starters in the league, say guys like Ilya Sorokin, who's making 8.25, a guy like Shesterkin, all these Vasilevsky, even these guys are playing, by the time they signed their deals, they were playing 55 to 60 to 65 games a year.
Hmm.
And Swayman is, I mean, obviously since Allmark has been here, they've basically been splitting the time 50-50. So it's one thing you can say against Swayman is that we haven't truly seen you play a full season as a starter yet. And I think
Right.
that might be one of the major snags that they're having right now in negotiations because at the end of the day, Don Sweeney and Cam Neely's job is to get the best value they can out of a player. And so what they're doing while respecting Swayman and understanding how good and how high of a ceiling that he has, they also have to try to, negotiate a close to fair value deal. And I'm not saying, 8 million, 8.5 is too much. I think for what he
Hmm.
can bring to the team and his ceiling and what he's shown over the course of his career in Boston, that he can live up to that contract.
Oh
You know what I mean?
yeah, him in the playoffs. Oh my god,
Yeah, yeah.
I I had heart. Let me tell you, I had heart palpitations in Game 7. I was at my neighbor's house. I'm like an older brother to her 2 sons. I was watching the game with their sons and their friends, and I'm sitting there and I'm just like, if we lose to these freaking posers,
Yeah.
I'm gonna lose my mind. And every save he made, I thought. Like one of her kids it works as an EMT. I'm like, dude, you're gonna need to get me to the hospital.
Yeah. Yeah.
But God, did he just absolutely earn any amount of money that I don't care. Give him the bag, give him the bank,
Yeah.
give him the keys to the kingdom. I don't give a I don't give a
Yeah. Give
rat's.
give him a
I don't,
blank check.
yeah, give him a blank check and just say how much, and do you want, and we'll even buy you an Allmark like statue or something like that,
Yeah, yeah.
just
A
to feel
free
like you're close to him.
a free private jet to Ottawa whenever you
Yep.
want.
Don't even care. You can be Swainta Claus how often you want. I do not care. I am Team Swaybe all the way.
Oh, yeah.
I do not care.
Yeah.
Um, I it gets done. No, like right. We can agree that the deal gets
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of when, not if. And ideally, I would like to see it before training camp, right, or preseason. Yeah, I'd like
Yep.
to see it definitely before then, so he can kind of get back on the ice. There have been rumors that he's kind of been skating. So it's like things are looking up, but there's always that little hiccup. So hopefully, Don and Cam and the Jacobs, if it comes down to them, I don't, the biggest freaking frugal spenders I've ever seen, get it done.
Yeah. Yeah,
All
for
right.
sure. Like, absolutely getting done. It's just a matter of, when, not if.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Jake. How'd you feel about his departure?
I feel like it was amicable, I guess you could say, for the way that his career and his relationship with the front office went while he was in Boston. Um, I know you referenced before we started recording the interview that he had in Vancouver, asking him about the trade rumors that had kind of swirled around him for the past 2 or 3 seasons since Bruce Cassidy was here. And he mentioned how he requested a trade not once but twice, and he felt like the front office told him, yeah, like we'll try to get something done, like we'll try to work with it, but like no promises essentially. So he mentioned how he felt like the front office wasn't doing as much as they could be to try to help something get through or get done. And he just kind of took that and you know played as a professional, and he went out and he did his job every night. He felt like maybe his game kind of took a dip because he just wasn't necessarily happy here. And I'm paraphrasing as well. This isn't like
Right.
exactly
Yeah.
what he said, but it's the general gist of it. And now you look back at it, and I hate to always reference this, but you have to in this situation. You have no players left from that 2015 draft. Those 3 picks in a row in the first round, you have nobody left, and you didn't get
Yeah.
anything back for them.
No, I was on Xbox last night talking with a couple buddies, and we're just like, we need to move past 2015.
I
And
know.
someone was just like, "How many players do we have from that draft? Fucking nobody."
Mhm.
And I'm just
Yeah,
like, Senyshyn bust.
gone.
Zaboral, Zaboral, I will attest that he is an NHL caliber defenseman,
Yeah,
but we didn't need defensemen at that point in time.
right,
And then
right.
you go look at the guys that were drafted after Barzell, Shabbat, just to name two of them, and I'm
It's
just like,
tough.
God, that really
Yeah,
hurt.
Kyle Connor too. Kyle
Kyle
Connor
Connor,
too.
and he's
Yeah,
crushing it.
crushing.
And but not to say Jake DeBrusk wasn't a good pick. He was. I
Mhm,
genuinely
mhm.
think I have a love-hate relationship with Jake because I loved his personality, but many times I hated his play. I feel like on the
Yeah,
at times on the ice he was a little flat, and I feel like he wasn't giving his effort. And after hearing his comments, I can understand why he felt like they didn't know how to use him or where to use him in certain scenarios. And I actually am going to blame Cassidy on that because I think for whatever reason, and I don't know if you remember this from like a couple of years ago, but when Cassidy was still here, it was reported that Cassidy just picked on him. Like
yeah.
every game, the guy I think Jake had 4 goals one game. And I think one of the comments that came out of the locker room was like, yeah, he could have had 5. I don't know why he didn't have 5. Like
I remember that. I
three
remember
goals,
that.
3 goals is hard enough to get, let alone 4. I can't score 3 goals. I can't
Yeah.
score 3 goals on a freaking empty net, let alone an NHL caliber goalie.
Yeah,
So like it's I don't know. So I blame Bruce because I feel like that hurt Jake's confidence. It didn't give him enough faith, and and that affected his ability to be in the locker room as a presence, despite his teammates calling him, a good guy, and I'm sure he was.
yeah.
I've met people who have met him and said that he is a phenomenal human being. So, and he does not knock Boston for anything either. He says
Right.
Boston was great, the city loved him, and like it's true. There's nothing wrong about it. Um, it was just sad to hear that he tried twice and that nobody wanted to help him. So I'm
Yeah.
personally glad he gets a fresh start. At the end of the day, he is a person. He deserves what's best for him.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I mean, the thing about Jake DeBrusk too, like he was always honestly like he was one of my favorite guys to watch, like he was clutch at times, especially come playoff time.
Yep.
He was a horse in the playoffs. And for a top 6 winger, he was very sound defensively. He would go on these hot and cold streaks where that's where I think he caught a lot of flack from, whether it be the fan base, ownership, the coaching staff. It was those hot and cold streaks because he'd go on like a 2 week stretch where he'd have 30 points, and then the rest of the month it's just nothing. And it's like, okay, like where is the happy medium here? And he never truly found it.
Yeah, and I mean there were teams he absolutely murdered too.
Yeah,
I mean
Toronto.
Toronto,
Toronto.
he was a leaf killer. Yeah, I mean the amount of I think I can't remember it was the stat this year. I think it was him and Carlo had the most playoff points against the Leafs, and I'm just like, and it was by a strong margin.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think DeBrusk had, I think, 12 points in 14 games or something like that, and he was scoring at almost a point a game against the Leafs. I'm like, dude, he just kind of kills people, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think every team has that one player. I know Rick likes to mention Jeff Skinner absolutely murders Montreal.
Yeah,
It's
he
just
does.
some of them you just it is what it is,
It just
right?
is, yeah.
And it's crazy. So no, I personally will miss Jake in terms of
Yeah,
a personality. I do think, however, it was time to move on from him. And I think the signings this offseason kind of prove that.
yeah.
Um, which kind of leads us into the lineups
Mm.
kind of discussion. This might be a little long, but I think it'll be a good conversation to have, because I think we actually agree on most, if most of it, but we have a little tweaks here and there.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
won't go granular into like what we think the power play or penalty kill is going to look like. That's going to be very dynamic, and it depends on, like, who's in the box and whatnot, and
yeah.
whatever. So why don't we go line by line? Like, why don't we start with the offense? Why don't I start with you? Why don't you tell me what you think the first line is going to be, and then we'll kind of go back and forth and address it line by line.
So this is going to be the most interesting thing, and I think this is what makes the not only the offseason but the preseason worth watching. There's going to be jobs on the line. Um
Mhm.
but that's more for later because that's mostly my second line. But my first
Yep,
line, I got Pavel Zacha, Elias Lindholm, and David Pastrnak. Line one. That's it. That's going to be your moneymaker line. You got the Zacha Pastrnak connection, and that you finally have a defensively sound, true number one center in Elias Lindholm, who has plenty of potential. And we've seen it when he was in Calgary and he was playing with stars like, I'm pretty sure he played with Matthew Tkachuk if I'm not getting
he
that
did.
incorrect. Yeah.
He did.
So he plays with stars and he elevates his game based on who his wingers are. And I think that was a big thing also with people who are kind of off Lindholm before we signed him, is that it depends on who he plays with. It's not himself as a player, which I agree and disagree with. But in this situation with Boston, you've got Pasternak on your wing, a 50 to 60 goal scorer year after year.
Mhm.
And now he's going to be centered by a guy like Elias Lindholm, who's responsible in the defensive end, is a creative playmaker, and he can score some too. So that's my first line. I think that it's going to work out very well. And Zaka on the wing is honestly, I prefer him on the wing. So I think
Better
it's,
at wing.
yeah,
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 perfectly said. I like like Lindholm. Again, I think he was about $750,000 overpaid, but I think that was just to guarantee him to come here.
yeah, yeah,
And I
for
think
sure.
I'm okay with giving that up, so long as it got us what we needed. I like the point you mentioned about, it's not just him, it's about what he does to the people around him. Like,
Yep,
good players play the game to their standards. Great players not only elevate themselves, but the players around them. And I think we saw that in Bergeron, Krejci, and you see it in Matt Kachuk's, you see it in Reinhardt's, you see it in a lot of people.
for sure.
So hopefully this kind of revives a little bit of Elias. I think that will be. I mean, I should say this. My first line is the exact same as you. I think Zaka's better off at the wing. He is a detriment at the center dot.
Yeah.
Sorry to say it. Um,
Truth hurts.
yeah, it is. It does. Hey, sometimes truth hurts, but that doesn't. You got to have skill to play in the NHL. He just doesn't have skill to win a faceoff, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Neither
Yeah.
neither does Connor McDavid, but that's fine. He can do literally everything else. But yeah, that's my first line too. I like what Lindholm's going to bring. I think he's going to bring a lot of potential, and I think you have two people to feed. And I think with Pasta and Zaka, on that line, they can actually focus more on the puck retrieval, the shooting, and Lindholm can worry about the transition game if and when that offensive zone time comes to an end.
Yeah.
So, and I think that'll be perfect. Second line, what do we have?
So this is where it gets interesting for me. And
Okay.
this is a line that, on a nightly basis, it's going to be exciting to watch. It's going to be chaotic. Sometimes it's going to be frustrating, but other times it's going to be exciting and just like I said, just full of chaos. But I have Brad Marchand on the wing, Matthew Poitras at center, and Fabian Lysell on the right side.
Okay.
Here's my thing. The third line, and we'll get to it, but the third line as it is, it would be the best third line in hockey. And I think you have to do that in order to produce a deep lineup. Marchand obviously is a vet. He came in as a smaller guy, kind of an underdog. He plays with an edge, and over time, he's been able to kind of reel that in and become a respectable player who can still produce, still agitate at an elite level. And he's taken that, you know, wild identity that he used to have, and he elevated to the point where now he's the captain of a original six franchise, one of the top tier franchises in the league, and he's earned that respect. Having him on the wing with two young guns, Matthew Poitras and Fabian Lysell, would be a giant benefit to both Poitras and Lysell in terms of growing their game, learning how to play as a professional, but also, and especially in Lysell's case, not to lose that edge in the process. But Matthew Poitras, you saw last year before he got hurt, he was a beast.
Good.
Unbelievable.
0.5 points per game.
Yeah.
Oh God.
And he was producing, he was skating, he was creating plays, he was playing along the boards, he was winning puck battles, he was
on the third line.
On the third line.
Yep,
the third line. And he added, according to him, he added 10 pounds of muscle in the offseason. He's getting bigger, he's focused on getting stronger and more durable. And he also he knows what it's like to play in the league. He did it last season, granted not for an extended period of time, but if he didn't get hurt, I think he would have been there all season long. So you have that little bit of experience with a guy like Marchand, and then you have a guy who has to, I'll preface it with this, in order for him to get this spot on opening night, he has to perform in the preseason. He can't come in like he did for, I think it was in the Worlds, 0 points. He didn't do anything in the Worlds. And, you know, he can't do that. He has to earn the spot. The spot can't just be given to him. But I think that he will in the preseason show that he can play. He'll create, he'll produce, he'll make stuff happen out of nothing. And he'll at least earn that maybe like 5 to 10 game
trial
period. Yeah. And I think he does it with Marchand, Poitras, and Lysell. It's chaos.
I'm sorry. I think you mean Lysell does it right with Marchand and Poitras.
Yes,
we were talking about him not earning it.
Yeah.
You might have convinced me to change something on my version of the second line. So mine is Marchand, Coyle, Lysell. Marchand, you hit the nail on the head. I think he's a veteran presence. Coyle as a veteran presence too, and
True.
Why I say Coyle over Poitras is because Coyle's a bit bigger. He has experience, and Marchand is still arguably one of the best cornerstone puck retrievers in the NHL. In this line, I'm kind of building to actually cater more towards Lysell, who, in my opinion, and I'm going to agree with you wholeheartedly on this, he needs to make the team.
Yeah.
He needs to, otherwise he's gone. That's why I say it's either he makes it or bust for him. Whether he can play half the season, that's fine. I'll consider that something. It's progress. He had 50 points in 56 games this year in Providence, but he didn't have any points in Worlds. You're right. So he's kind of enigmatic if you think about it.
Yeah.
Where he has a skill set. Like have you ever gone to a Providence game, like down there and seen him?
He's quick, dude.
He's fast. Yeah. His hands are lightning, but he doesn't go to the corner.
Yeah.
He hovers. And that to me concerns me. So I kind of want Coyle on that second line with Marchand to be that additional two-way person. Because like Pastrnak, I'm not expecting Lysell to play defense.
Yeah.
Like, I think he's a thin guy, and I'm sure he's put on muscle, but his role, he's gonna shoot the puck. He's gonna snipe it. He's gonna get open, and that's gonna be his role. He's gonna try and dangle his way through people. That's what I think his role is gonna be. And I think you have the bigger bodies in Marchand and Coyle to facilitate that, similar to Lindholm and Zacha on the first line with Pastrnak. Not to say Pastrnak won't go into the corners, but he's also not someone you really want to go to the corners if it's
Right.
going to against like, maybe Mikhail Sergachev or Victor Hedman. Like, you're going to be like, we'll get it back. Just
Yeah. Don't get
don't
hurt.
don't get hurt. And I think why hit Coyle over Patra additionally is that I want Patra to still gain a little bit more of NHL experience because Marchand I think is going to sign again next year before we kind of elevate him a little bit. And I think you can fluctuate that line a little bit to give him that test parameter. But it's because of his size right now and his lack of NHL experience where I put him where he is. But I could see it going both ways. I think you convinced me that I'm willing to give him a chance on the second line.
You might have convinced me to put Coyle on that second line.
Good. So we're flip flopping. So
Yeah.
something's brewing. I don't know. So we're cooking over here. I actually want to give an honorable mention to his competitor in Lysell, right? So Lysel's competitor is Merkulov. He's a natural left wing though. Yep. But they did put DeBrusk on the right hand side and it worked out. So there's scenarios where it does. So I don't think Merkulov makes it to that line, but I'm just mentioning that is his competitor. Yeah, I think Lysell should take it. If he doesn't, I think we're in trouble.
Yeah.
All right, third line.
All right, my third line, I got Frederic, Coyle, and Geeky. Now, my thought process, Coyle is a good 2C on a playoff team.
Yep.
On a cup contending team, he's the best 3C in the league. And that's I've held that opinion for a little bit. He's so solid. Like if you have a line of Frederic, Coyle, Geeky, those are three big bodies. It can be your shutdown line. They can go out there, they can grind the opponent away, take away some energy, and they can also produce. I mean, Frederic just under 20 goals last year. Geeky had a career year. Coyle had 60 plus points. So it's really in terms of depth for me having that line together. And those three all year long. I mean, that is a solid third line. And I mean, it's hard to say
because you could between the middle six.
Yeah, because you could flip flop Patra and Coyle, and I would honestly like it either way. But that's my third line, and I'm second guessing myself now. But I mean, I think you could flip flop either and have it work.
I actually have a question for you where we can get the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
What if they base it off of a situation?
Yeah. Yes.
So if it's a guy like maybe Evgeny Malkin, right, who's a good face-off guy, are you going to put Patra against him, or would you rather put Coyle? Depends. Are you also going to put Trent and Geeky against Malkin's line, even though it's a big line, it's a solid one, or would you rather have Marchand out there to kind of mitigate? So I think you might be looking at some situational lineups between Coyle and Patra where you get the best of both worlds, especially on, I think there's another couple of teams that are deep at center. And I think Nashville's one of them.
Yeah, Nashville.
Yeah, for sure. Where you kind of have to might make that judgment call, and where you're just like, you know what, Patra, Coyle will win the face-off, and then you go right on.
Yeah,
because they did that in overtime a couple of times that past year too, where they put a guy out. I think it was Beecher who won the face-off, but then immediately skated to the bench, and Marchand hopped on the ice.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's a good way. It's a good theory.
Yeah, like you could even go the Florida Panthers. They got Barkov, Bennett, Wandell down the middle. Like that's crazy deep.
Disgusting.
I know it's
disgusting. Not fair. Barkov and Ons Kopitar, I think, are the only two comparable players to Bergeron in my opinion. They're phenomenal players.
Yeah,
and I'd actually argue by the numbers, Ons Kopitar has had the better career than Bergeron. I mean, one more Stanley Cup, goals, assists, points, but I think he's been playing a little bit longer. But I think Bergeron is just a better two-way forward. Yeah. But you could make a case. Barkov might even be challenging that pretty close too. Yeah, my third line is the same. I think the only ticky tack thing we have is Coyle versus Pacha, but Trent, Geeky, and man, did Geeky also step it up in the playoffs too.
Oh yeah.
They put him on the second line, the first line, and it was kind of like Danton Heinen in a way too, who I was also disappointed to see where you kind of put Danton. He helped elevate people. His role wasn't to score, but he helped the situation.
Yeah.
But I'm actually going to roll with your assessment of the third line. It was too good. I got nothing to add. I yield. Yeah, it was too good. I got nothing to add to that. What do we think of the fourth one? I think the fourth one might also have a couple ins and outs.
Yeah, the fourth one is interesting. So I can see this switching around a lot, and almost like what you were saying situationally. I mean, we see Monty all the time switch up the lineups, and who
I
knows
wish
if
he
that
wouldn't.
was. I know,
I
I
really
know.
wish he wouldn't.
Sometimes it's excessive. Um, but my fourth line right now, I have Beecher, Kostelic, Brazo, and Max Jones is my rotating bottom six guy. And what I want to mention with Jones is that I don't know if you're a baseball fan or not, but with Brock Holt being the utility guy, and he could step in and take guys' roles when they needed a day off, or if they were hurt, injured, they were bruised up. I think that's going to be Jones' role, and I think he's still, regardless of being the being the extra skater, I think he still gets 55 to 60 games in. And maybe he even wins a spot regardless, because Max Jones himself is a phenomenal player. But Beecher, Kostelic, Brazo. I think Brazo was a big cog in the bottom six, obviously being the big body, winning puck battles in the corner, playing hard on the boards. Johnny Beecher with his speed. And then Mark Kostelic, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but he was actually among 552 players in the league who played at least 50 games. Kostelic was number one in the league in penalties drawn at 2.59 penalties
It's
per
big
60.
playoffs.
Yeah,
That's going to be big.
that's huge. So I think having just that element in the lineup is important in itself, but also he's a big body too, and he can throw his weight around. If you look him up on YouTube, most of his highlights are fights or big hits. Not to the point of a guy like Nikita Zadorov, but still that guy in the bottom six who can throw his weight around and be that intimidating force.
I agree. I think the Bruins clearly are emphasizing size on the
Yes.
fourth line and on the defense. I mean, if you see the height and weight breakdown of a lot of the players now, holy
Crazy.
crap.
It's crazy.
I play in Peabody, right? At some pickup hockey every
Mhm.
now and again, and I actually played with Bob Sweeney. That man is like in his like 50s, and we collided, and I went down, and the man just stood and looked over me. He goes, "Yo, you good?" I'm just like, yeah, I'm in pain, but it's fine. Like, these guys are so freaking solid, and the man's had multiple hip surgeries, and I'm the guy
Yeah.
that goes down and hurts. Go figure. Maybe I'm probably just a fragile little delicate flower. I have no idea.
No, me too. That's why we're here right now. That's
Yeah,
why we're
that's
here
why
right
we're
now.
not on the ice. That's why we're
Right.
not. They must have just lost the invitation in the mail to the draft. I understand. It
Yeah.
happens all the time.
Yeah. I didn't go to the draft. That's my fault.
It's fine. I didn't show up. They called my name. It was fine. I understand. I totally get it. No, I'm in agreement with you. I think, except more or less. I'm hesitant to have 4 right-handed centers.
Yeah.
Or 4 of any kind of anything going right down the middle, whether it be left-handed, right-handed. I actually have Beecher at center.
Okay.
I have Jones fighting for his spot, like I said, with Merkulov.
Mhm.
I think it's going to be one of the two, and I think that might also be situational. I think when we look at the bottom 6, we're going to look at some situational hockey where if it's a team that has some lacking defense, you might see Merkulov in there to get some additional speed through, and have Beecher and Braz as just like your enforcers in there to kind of get the puck and dish it off to these people. Or a team like Florida where it's going to be heavy hitting, you're probably going to see Jones, Beecher, Kostelic, or you might even see Jones, Kostelic, Braz. You might see some of these guys that are can set the tone, and I think that are very important that the Bruins have missed. They had it in Pat Maroon, but we got to remember he's old.
Right.
We didn't have enough of the scrappiness that I think. And I love Trent Frederick and I love how scrappy he can be, but I think it's a detriment if he's in the box for 5 minutes.
I totally agree. Totally agree.
His game has evolved over the last 2 years to something really phenomenal. And I actually want to attribute that to Bergeron and Coyle, the people that he's played with and, you know, mentored under. Yeah, that's the only switches I'd make. I think I would just prefer Beecher at center over Kostelic, and it's nothing against him. It's just because for me, I don't know why I just hate having for the same thing, because then how do you, it's like you mentioned baseball, right? Like, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
well, a left-handed batter might bat better against a right-handed pitcher or something, right? Like I don't know the exact terminology, but those are statistically real, right? Because it's the way how the ball is thrown and whatnot. And the puck may be dropped uniformly, but the way that stick blade's curved,
Right.
if that puck falls one way or the other, it could influence it.
Yeah.
Um,
I do like having Beecher at center. That's a good call. It's a good
I
call.
he's been good at it. And
Yeah.
I think that's why. And I know Kostelic is, I mean, they're fourth line guys. I don't think he's bad, but I think if you keep Jones, Beecher, and Kostelic, you have two centers on that line. And I like the fact of where we're going to. If you kind of look at it, the only line that wouldn't have two centers on it would be the second line. So it's kind of like that's the line where if either Patra or Coyle gets kicked out, well, now you're running into a situation where Marchand could take a face off, but he's not going to win it.
Yeah.
Or in the unlikelihood that he does, he'll probably frame that puck up on the wall.
Yeah.
But that's my forward core. And I think, like I said, you know, Merkulov is going to fight with Jones. I think Braz and Kostelic will probably fight it out, or they're just going to swap them out. I think the possibilities are there.
Yeah.
My biggest concern with the forward group, because Montgomery and his genius, he needs to set lineup. And I understand that he likes the idea of like, okay, you're playing well, so I'm going to elevate you. Don't do that, because you're playing well with the people that you're playing with and on the line that you're on, because, well, that's how you're fucking playing well. Like, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like if
Yeah,
I
like it's
put,
working. Like
yeah,
don't mess it up too much.
yeah. If I put Beecher against Crosby, well, it's not going to go out so well. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not going to anticipate Beecher to beat Sidney Crosby at the faceoff dot more than 40% of the time. It's
Yeah.
just not going to happen. And if it does, then I'm concerned about how much money he's going to want after that. But okay, so that's the forwards. Defense is fun, because I think you and I went a little bit on back and forth on this on Twitter, which was awesome.
Yeah.
You started first with the forward group. I'll start with the defensive group. So we'll start with deep pairing one. I think you have to keep Lindholm, McAvoy. Because I don't know what it is, but ever since Lindholm was hit by, I think it was against Carolina.
Yeah, I think Svechnikov behind the net.
Yeah, he hasn't been the same, but he hasn't been different. It's this weird thing with him where he shows spurts of it, but I think it's because he's been going up and down the one pair and two pair so much that he hasn't had the ability to kind of establish that game with McAvoy again. And again, I blame Montgomery for that. The second reason is because Lindholm and Carlo in terms of the entire NHL, was the statistically worst defensive pair in the NHL.
Yeah.
In terms of goals against, which is not great. So that's why I'm hesitant to put them there. They just don't seem to gel well. But that's just me. What do you think?
I agree. This is one of the things that I was also flip-flopping on. But I ended up going with Zadorov and McAvoy. Zadorov is, in my opinion, exactly what this unit has been missing. And I mean, a giant swing for McAvoy going from Grzelcyk to Zadorov. I mean, a guy who's under 6 feet to a guy who's almost 7 feet tall. But I think to establish kind of a little bit more of an, not expanded role, but more opportunity for McAvoy to be able to play a little bit more free and show his offensive game. is having him paired up with Zadorov, because if McAvoy wants to, say, jump up in the play a little bit or go a little bit deeper into the ozone, he knows for a fact Zadorov is not doing that. And if Zadorov is anywhere below the dot, there's a problem. He should not be anywhere below the dot. But I think it frees up McAvoy to kind of get a little more offensively creative, jump down in the play, and also be able to have that guy in the D zone who is never going to get pushed around. He knows that he's going to be protecting the net the entire time. And no matter what, I mean, he's not getting beaten down. Like, this is a giant guy, and he's willing to stick up for anybody on the ice, throw his weight around, block shots, take a couple shots at somebody in front of the net if they're trying to screen sway or Korpisalo, whoever's in the net. And I think that's going to be a big boost to McAvoy. And I think that's mainly the reason why I did that. Just for the benefit to McAvoy as a whole, and also Zadorov just kind of establishing that intimidation factor right away.
Awesome point you mentioned about cleaning out the garbage in front of Swayman.
Yeah.
It was the game-winning goal in 2023 where McAvoy or Lindholm did not pressure the puck carrier.
Yep.
You can't do that. And how many goals this season alone were off of Lindholm or McAvoy's legs?
Yeah.
That was bad. So yes, I agree with that. Because my reason, because I think we're arguing who's going to be paired with Carlo, not who's got first or second line. Like,
right.
Who does Carlo get, right? And I think I was less worried about McAvoy's offensive input because I think Lindholm is the more offensive-minded player. Because McAvoy, I don't see coming down below the marks to pinch unless he absolutely can. I see him ripping absolute blasts from the point, and Lindholm more of the pinch defenseman, and McAvoy is the shutdown defenseman. Like, that was my thing. I'd say Zadorov with Carlo because of the same reasons you say Zadorov with McAvoy, because Carlo, he has a rocket.
He has a bomb.
He's got a hell of a shot, but he's had such, like, if you look at it, because he was also paired with Grzelcyk, right?
Yep.
Who was, I don't want to call him a defensive liability, but he was one of those puck movers that he was going to take the shot. And Carlo had to kind of sit back and play more of the two-way game, even though he's more of like a defensive defenseman. Yeah. But when Carlo gets involved in the offense, it seems like they do better.
Yeah.
And it was always better than when Grzelcyk got involved in the offense, because Grzelcyk shots were blocked. They never made it through. They were wide. I think I barely seen Carlo miss a shot when he takes it. It's either maybe blocked 2 feet in front of the net, not right in front of them.
Yeah.
So I guess we're in the same chapter, just on 2 different pages.
Yeah.
Because I kind of, you know what? I say experiment it, see where it goes. And I would experiment it with the same team. So when you play the same team twice, see where the differences are. And I think that's your best assessment of the situation.
Yeah.
Because I could see either or. I don't know. Lindholm and Carlo just scare me, because I think Lindholm has some PTSD from that hit, and I don't know what it is, because Lindholm in 2022, 2023 was phenomenal. If he can get back to that, I say keep him with McAvoy, but if he can't, then I'd say actually put him all the way down to bottom and give Lowry his opportunity somewhere.
Yeah.
Which leads me to the third pairing is Lowry Peak, no question.
Yeah.
Lowry's earned his spot. That man is a ballerina.
Like on the ice. He really is.
His speed, his puck handling, and then you have a shutdown defenseman like Peak. I just think, that's the way the Bruins defensive structure is going to look to me. You're going to have that one shutdown guy, then the puck mover and shooter, but all of them can shoot. It's just, you now more have that defined go-to individual than the mishmash.
Yeah, and like you said too, I mean, Mason Lowry is a ballerina. Like, he was a forward for a while, I think up until college, and they switched him to defense. And you can see some of those offensive instincts when he's walking the blue line or he's using his edges to kind of, to use a basketball term, breaking the ankles of these guys that are trying to block his shots. But I honestly think, and like any way you look at this lineup, I mean, hell, you could, not saying that you should, but you could even go Lori McAvoy, like switch up the lines any way you want to, stick them on their same sides. This is a top 3 decor in the league. I mean,
easy,
like easily. And the best Bruins teams that we've seen in our lifetimes has always had a deep, giant defense. And I mean, this is one of the best decors that I've seen out of this team in a really long time. I mean, you can go back to 2011, Chara, Boychuk, Ferentz, McQuaid, Seidenberg.
Oh, I love
And
McQuaid.
I know.
I love that bastard. I don't know how I feel about Andrew Ferentz anymore ever since he flipped off the fans. And he tried to, he's like, oh, my glove got stuck. No, fuck you. You
like,
just
no,
say it like it is. Say it like it is.
Just say what you did. You know you did it.
It's
like
fine. It's fine. It's okay. We all laughed. People hate you. It's fine. Just get over it.
But like even then, like Wotherspoon is your 7th defenseman. That's great. That is a great 7th defenseman.
He in peak in the playoffs, I think even come the final, still were statistically either the best or the second best pair.
Yep.
And I will say this: it could arguably be artificially created because of Swayman, because that man stood on his head. True. Which we're not going to even discuss who's starting. That's not even bothering with that. But it's like you mentioned, the 2011 Stanley Cup team. Like for me personally, if we put Zadorov with McAvoy, it gives me the Chara Seidenberg feeling, where you have that. If you put Lindholm with Carlo, it gives me that Boychuk and McQuaid-ish kind of the thing. And then peak is Andrew Ferentz. And who was the 6th D? I can't remember the 6th D man.
We got Kampfer was one. I know we got Caberlet at the deadline, and he didn't really do much.
Yeah, I don't think he did much, but I'll have to I can't remember who was on that. I think it was Kampfer. I think Kampfer played 7 in game 7.
Yeah.
But
now I'm really curious.
It's a deep. Deep as hell.
Yeah, it was Matt Hunwick, Steven Kampfer, Shane Knighty for a little bit. Yeah, damn, this Matt Bartkowski, this team was crazy.
Dude, I love that guy. I was upset we traded him, but I thought he was going to turn into something, and then he just turned into a nothing.
Yeah.
Very tragic. But and you're right, Wotherspoon, a great 7th D man, and he can kind of slot in anywhere. You also have Ian Mitchell down in Providence. You can call up. I hope McAvoy, Carlo don't go down. We can survive peak.
Yeah.
We cannot survive. Carlo for long. McAvoy, we definitely can't survive for that long.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a huge detriment. I'm excited beyond all belief to kind of see where this team goes.
Yeah.
Cup contender, I don't want to say playoff team, definitely.
Yeah.
I think the Bruins for sure improved through free agency. I think they will either get 2nd or 3rd in the division, because I think Toronto got better, but they did not do enough.
Mm-hmm.
I think their defensive acquisitions were more on the offensive defensive side of things rather than the defensive side of things, like bringing in OEL.
Yeah.
Woohoo.
Yeah, right.
Like,
Congrats,
cool.
Toronto.
You're still paying 4 people like $50 million and still can't move Mitch Marner. By the way, I will actually disagree with Toronto. Mitch Marner is severely underappreciated. They do not deserve his talent. He has 50 points, similar to, I believe, Lysell, 50 points in 56 playoff games. You got to treat the guy better. It's not that he's not doing anything. Your team just sucks.
Yeah. It's the team.
That little Leafs hate was for Rick. Just making him feel involved here. I'm just excited. I think it's 2nd or 3rd. I think Florida still retains it. They're going to come off the high. My one concern with Florida is Bobrovsky. He's played a lot. In game 7, he had to stand on his head, and it's going to be a similar situation to Vasilevsky. They play a lot of hockey, right? It is what it is. Why don't we close out with our overall grade of free agency? Because I think they did I'll say I think they did enough, right? I think there's still that question at the second right wing. Um,
Yeah.
so a lot of fans might disagree with this. I wonder if you're going to disagree with this. I'm going to give him a B plus.
Interesting.
Um,
Uh,
and I'm hesitant to give him an A minus. I'm like at an 89.9. Like that's how close I am.
yeah,
But I feel like they're at a B plus because they still haven't fucking signed Swayman. I think that's my
dude,
problem.
dude. Yep.
And yeah, it's just because they improved the forward group, the defense. There's still a slight question at second right wing that'll be yet to be seen, and they improved the depth, but Swayman I think is the factor. What do you got?
It's funny. I also have them at a B plus because I'm in the
Yeah,
same boat as you. It's so close to an A minus, but the Swayman extension not being done is just you can't give
painful.
them you can't give them an A anything without that extension being done. But I think that the Zadorov signing was phenomenal. I think you got exactly what you needed on the back end to reintegrate that DNA that's been missing for a few years now, where it's not necessarily the big bad Bruins anymore. It doesn't necessarily have to be
Oh, it is now.
stereotypical big bad Bruins, but it is now.
Oh
And
yeah, it is now.
you have such a deep, heavy lineup in the forward group, and then you look at the defense, and it's just stacked. I don't think there's anybody less, or sorry, I don't think there's anybody smaller than 6'2" or 6'3", and I think the lightest is McAvoy, and he's at like 210. You have a giant decor. You have a goaltender in Corpusalo who I think with the right coaching from goalie coach Bob, because everybody knows he's a magician, he can become valuable. And once you sign Swayman, this team, like you said, outside of the second right wing spot, doesn't really have a lot of holes on paper. So B plus for me would have been an A. Honestly, would have been an A plus if the Swayman extension was done because I think you
Oh,
address maybe
I
not
don't
A
know if I
plus,
could go
maybe
that high.
maybe A minus because of the second line right wing, but definitely in the A stratosphere. Um,
An A
but
plus for me would have been the acquisition of Draisaitl. Like
yeah, for sure.
a miracle acquisition of Draisaitl would have given me an
Yeah,
A plus.
I was a little I gave him a gift at the A plus. But I think A minus if the extension for Sway had been done would have been fair because that second line right wing, you're taking a big gamble on young guys to take that leap. Um and yeah, I mean at the end of the day, I think this is a team that has the potential to go on a deep run. Like you said, second, third in the division. I think Florida still beats you out for first. But Tampa, obviously losing Stamkos, losing Sergachev, they got weaker. Detroit, Buffalo, Ottawa, they're all in the same kind of conversation. I think Ottawa could give you a decent run for your money this year. Um,
I
and
think they have to.
they have
They
to, yeah.
really do. Oh man. Oh
Yeah,
god.
they
Dude.
do.
Detroit's got to make a motion. Yeah. Oh,
Yep.
I can't. Oh, I could spend hours on this. By the way, real quick, how weird is it to see Stamkos in a Preds jersey?
I know, dude,
It
but
feels
weirdly,
weird.
it
Oh,
feels weird, but every time I see a picture of him like in
damn,
the
he looks
jersey,
good.
I'm like, it looks natural. Like he looks good,
Yeah,
dude.
he looks good. Yellow's his color.
Yeah, yellow is his color. Yeah, yellow is his color.
And I'm pretty sure the Preds fans and Barry Trotz were like, "Dude, you look good in yellow. Why don't you just come on over here?" And he just goes, "All right."
Yeah.
Like
Well,
it's
that deal that they offered him, Tampa, like 7 years, 3 mil AAV.
oh, they can go pound sand. The way they
Yeah,
treat. I'm
like,
sorry. The way Stamkos got everything he deserved in out of Nashville. I mean,
yeah.
the
Oh yeah.
way Tampa handled that situation with their captain and who they drafted, awful.
Yeah. Yeah,
Never.
and even me and my podcast partner Nick Melanson, we were talking about it on our show. Like that's the difference between an organization like Boston and an organization like Tampa. Like
Mm.
no, like Steven Stamkos is a legend in Tampa. He helped turn that organization around, and I mean, he won what two cups, 3 cups with Tampa.
Well, I don't
And
know. I don't know if he was part of the 04 team. I think he
all right,
was.
yeah, I no, I don't. I think he got drafted in like '08, but regardless,
Yeah. I think
two
we're
cups
thinking
in
like Vinny
Tampa.
Lecavalier. I think.
Yeah, Marty St. Louis, that whole
Yeah,
era.
yeah.
But the difference is the Bruins would never do that. Like you see it right now with Marchand, you saw it with Bergeron, you saw it with Krejci, you saw it with Chara up until it really got to the point where it was pretty
Well,
obvious that he had
that
to go.
that was gonna be my point, where if they at least had told Char, like, "We would love to sign you,
Yes.
but expect your time to be reduced," and Char did not want that.
Right.
And so there was a conversation, and even like I remember Chara took out that entire page in the Boston Globe,
Yeah. Yeah.
and apparently that's not cheap, like, at
No.
all. It's
Can't
a
be.
lot of money, and
He
he wrote
probably
this
spent he
whole
probably
thing.
spent that whole Washington Capitals contract on that one
Oh,
Boston Globe
probably.
page.
Yeah, and what he said was phenomenal, and even to this day, he still says it was not an easy decision to make, but he goes, "I wanted to play, and
Yeah.
that's where I wanted to go."
Yeah, it was an
Uh,
amicable split.
yeah, and but yeah, that they weren't even talking to Stammer. Nope, I'm sorry, I just
It's
man
so
deserves better.
disrespectful.
Yep,
Yeah.
but then you go sign Cam Atkinson for fucking garbage.
Right. It makes
Good luck with that one.
no sense.
Yeah, good luck with him.
Yeah.
Like, and it sucks. I actually loved Cam Atkinson, but that's a story for another day. Um, well, Mike, honestly, buddy, thank you so much for joining us on HiBruiNation. Fans, please go follow Mike on Twitter. The guy is phenomenal. He makes great posts, great points. You've just heard many of them tonight. And go check out his podcast. I think, Mike, you might have to forgive me earlier because I think I said it was something Bruin, but it's Bruin something, correct?
Yeah, so it's like on Twitter, it's at Bruin something, but Spotify, Apple, Google, all listening platforms, it's something's Bruin. It's just, when you got to work around the handles, people already take it. So,
Yep.
yep, you got to
Yep.
work around that.
For
But,
sure.
yep.
Well, we'll include the link to your pod here and with us as well. So, guys, feel free once this video posts, go check him out. He's a great guy. We'd love to have him on more. And so,
Oh, yeah.
without further ado, guys, that's it. Have a good night, good day, good morning, good evening, wherever the hell you are at this time. For us, it's night. And we will see you on the next episode.
Hey, thanks for having me.